Hello, everyone. I'm Nicholas Dwork, and today I had the pleasure of interviewing presidential candidate Jo Jorgensen of the Libertarian Party. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Dr. Jorgensen, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Glad to be here.
I don't have a lot of time, so I'm just going to jump into the questions.
Okay.
We now know that China has placed subsets of its population, in particular Uyghur Muslims, into forced labor camps, and that many prominent American brands are benefiting from the result of this effective slavery. What would you as president do about this?
Well, as with pretty much everything, I think that the free market does a much better job than the government at pretty much everything. So, and we've seen that really with advertising in our country. So, for instance, um, with we have companies now talking about fair trade coffee or completely made in America or whatever, and we've got companies saying 10% of our profits go to charities, and we saw something similar happen with Kathy Gifford, I believe is her name, where she found out that there was slave labor building her, or at least child labor, I believe it was, uh, making clothes for her brand. And she said, okay, I'm going to stop that. So I would say that getting this out to the American public and letting them know that's going to be the strongest force to stop this. And we've seen with Facebook that when people get these ideas, it spreads like wildfire. And Americans do not like the idea of that. And I'd like to point out, a lot of people look at this as, well, we need government to stop something like this. But actually, government in the wrong hands is worse than not having the power of government. And a good example is Charles Manson versus Hitler. Charles Manson, without the power of government, was horrific, but then put somebody like Hitler, give him the tool of big government, and look at the evil that comes out of him. So again, I think that we can overcome this much better through the free market.
So,
My apologies.
no problem.
My apologies.
This information is known. The public is aware of it. It was revealed throughout the media
When though?
in March 2020.
Oh, just recently,
Mm-hmm,
the last couple
mm-hmm.
months? Yeah, I think it will take a minute, but I guess my question is what should the federal government do, and would it cause even more problems than it solves? For
Mm-hmm.
instance, if we go over there and we tell China how to run their government, uh, are they likely to retaliate and try to start a war with us? And if you look at, you know, basically we cannot get into a real war with China. We can both obliterate each other with the bombs. And so I would suggest that the free market would be a much more powerful tool, but I have not seen it reach just the average American person
Yeah,
yet.
yeah. But I'll give a different example. So with the FDA, you in the debates advocated that the requirement to get FDA approval should be safety rather than both safe and effective.
Mhm.
And your stance, I think, is that a brand is such a valuable commodity that the free market would not, or that they would not sell a bad product for fear of damaging their brand.
Well, or going out of business, right?
Okay. We now know that Johnson and Johnson included asbestos in their baby powder, and they knowingly sold this carcinogenic chemical in their baby powder and lied about the ingredients in the product. And even though this has been made aware, it hasn't affected much Johnson and Johnson's stock price or their profits. So it doesn't seem like the market is responding in a way to address this issue.
Well, you're absolutely right, because we don't have a free market. Because if any large company starts feeling the pains, they simply go to their congressman and say, "Hey, give us special help, give us special bailouts."
Mm-hmm.
And even the Democrats who claim to hate corporations, look at Obama. He rescued the Wall Street firms right and left,
Mm-hmm.
which is abominable.
Mm-hmm.
So these companies are pretty much operating opposite the free market. And I did mention, and I'm not sure if I mentioned it in every debate, because the debates, we've got that little timer going
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
we have to stop. But I know there were at least some times that I mentioned that unfortunately we don't have the free market as a correcting thing, because look at, well, for instance, the Gulf oil spill. And a lot of people say, well, look, we need government because greedy corporations will ruin the environment, like the Gulf oil spill. Well,
Mhm,
what a lot of people don't realize is that the government put a cap on their liability. So
mhm,
when they spilled all that oil, it was like, oh, well, so sorry, because they didn't have to worry about the consequences. Now, if there were a true free market, they would have had to have gotten some kind, an insurance company, or risk going out of business with the
mhm,
oil spill. And so the insurance company, one of two things could have happened. Either the insurance company would have said, no, this is too risky, we're not insuring this. Or they would have said, well, it's kind of risky, we'll insure you, but because it is risky, we're going to come out and we're going to visit your oil rigs every week, every month, whatever, to make sure that everything was okay. But what happens is these companies uh, put their people into office. They donate to campaigns, donate to the lobbyists, and then when they run into a problem, they run to Congress, and then Congress, oh, we'll pass a special law, we'll bail you out, don't worry. I mean, even the fact that they're bailing out the airline industry right
mhm.
now after the coronavirus. Some people have said, well, but we need to have air travel. Well, yeah, we do, but the planes aren't going to disappear. So maybe if those companies didn't do a good job running them, maybe they need to be taken over by other people. But we don't have a free market that allows for that.
What would you do as president? What would you do to encourage a free market to address some of these issues that I've brought up?
Oh, well, absolutely. I would hold companies accountable. I would say your days of being bailed out are gone.
Mm,
You make a bad decision, you're on your own. And if that means going bankrupt, you're going bankrupt. Don't come to us for money. And if you look at the legislation, I mean, there have been laws that have been written for, actually in Congress, there have been laws that have been written for basically one company. Now, they don't name the company, they'll say all companies residing in the state of Ohio with these certain characteristics, they shall be exempt from. Well, it's written for one company, and it's obscene. So I would say, yeah, your money is no good here, basically.
I'd like to ask you about the environment. And
Hmm.
here I'm not speaking so much about carbon emissions, though that's an
Okay.
important topic on itself. I'm talking more about the byproducts of production.
Hmm.
So we as Americans seem perfectly okay with companies producing products that we want and polluting the environment, as long as they're not polluting our immediate environment. And so a great example of this is DuPont, which uh, just poisoned the water of the Mid-Ohio Valley.
Hmm.
And we're still buying Teflon.
Hmm.
It's still being litigated.
Hmm.
And DuPont, in response, has offshored production of Teflon to China.
Hmm.
So is it appropriate to permit a company to destroy our environment this way? And if not, what would you as president do about it?
Yeah, absolutely not. And what I would do is I would put some of these waterways and lakes in the hands of private companies. I would much rather see water being maintained by somebody like the Audubon Society or some environmental company than the government, because we get what's called tragedy of the commons, where it's like everybody owns it and nobody owns it. And all you have to do is look at government run parks and how they are often filthy and not well maintained, compared to, let's say, Disney World or Disneyland, where you've got groundskeepers keeping them up all the time because they have a vested interest. And if people have a vested interest in whatever part of the environment, they're going to take much better care. And in fact, one of my favorite examples, because I'm kind of an animal lover, if you look over in Africa, where we hear about poaching, right? Where people will kill elephants for the tusks, or how we've got some tigers that are almost extinct. And people say, well, we need government to do something. But what they don't realize is a lot of these lands that these animals are being poached on are either owned by the government, or they're kind of these common lands where nobody really is in charge. Now, turn that to, let's look at that in a private setting. When is the last time you've heard a farmer, for instance, in our country, go out back with a shotgun and shoot every cow and come in and say, wow, I had a great haul today. I went out there and killed 30 cows. No, because it's in a farmer's best interest to breed the cows and have a long-term investment. So the same with the waterways, same with parks, same with everything.
Let me follow up here. So what about the case where, like, for example, with DuPont, they owned the land that they polluted. It's just that the pollution seeped out of the land that they owned.
Well,
It extended beyond their borders.
Yeah, but they didn't own the land that it seeped onto.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the libertarian, the general libertarian philosophy is that pollution needs to be looked upon as trespassing. Like if somebody comes into my front lawn and starts dumping trash, that's trespassing.
Mm-hmm.
And so whether it's smoke into the air, or water seeping in the ground, or dumping trash in the water, or whatever, that's trespassing onto somebody else. And my question is, and I don't have the figures for this, is how many millions of dollars has DuPont paid to politicians to allow them to continue to do that? Or maybe we've gotten to the part where the politicians don't care about it, because we never take care of somebody else's land as well as we take care of our own. In fact, there's a cute saying that nobody ever washes the rental car before turning it back in. So why would they worry about it? They're getting away with it, and it needs to be stopped. It absolutely needs to be stopped. So they are trespassing. They are trespassing on someone else's land.
Would you like to say anything before we end this?
Oh, that if you like some of the ideas here, and if you'd like to learn more, my platform is to bring the troops home. I'd like to turn America into one giant Switzerland, armed and neutral. There's no reason we need to be the policemen of the world. Also, if you're looking for an affordable healthcare solution that is affordable, that has been proven, as opposed to something theoretical that didn't work, or if you're interested in the environment and Social Security, how to save for a safe retirement, not one run by the politicians and being under the whims of Congress, to go to my site, which is joj2020.com, and take a look at our issues and sign up if you'd like to help. And if you're looking for a true alternative in November, to please vote Libertarian, as opposed to the Democrats and Republicans, which are giving us polluted waters, which are giving us oil spills, and which are giving us basically a system of bureaucrats and special interests and lobbyists.
Dr. Jorgensen, thank you so very much for your time today.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Have a great day.
You too. Thanks.